today we are stepping into a conversation that is tender, grounded, and quietly mind blowing. If you have ever felt disconnected from your body, if you've ever lived in survival mode for so long that it started to feel normal, and if you've ever wondered whether healing is something you do or something you remember, this episode is for you. My guest today is Dayna, and she is an energy healing practitioner, author, and guide who helps people reconnect with their bodies and awaken their own feeling intelligence. Dayna's work is not abstract, it's truly amazing. And on talking about that, I firstly welcome Dana on the show. And Dana, it's a pleasure and it's genuinely my honor to host you today. And listeners, I'll tell you about her approach, right? So, her approach blends modern neuroscience with somatic awareness, sound, and frequency healing, biofield tuning, and the yogic framework of the five koshas, essentially healing across layers: physical, emotional, mental, energetic, and spiritual. And with that, let's start. Dana, I want you to take us back to the moment you heard the words multiple sclerosis, and not just medically but emotionally. What did that diagnosis crack open in you? And what did it suddenly make, you know, uh, to your life? And did it make suddenly everything clear, or was it chaotic for you at that time? I just want to know your experience through it.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'd like to be able to share this message of hope and inspiration with other people. My diagnosis was kind of a winding road and a mixed basket of emotions. In the beginning, first started feeling symptoms um, during a very difficult time in my life. My firstborn son had just passed away, and I was in a very toxic marriage. And that made it worse because we were now on top of his abuse. We were both grieving. And I started to get the first inclinations that there was something wrong, but I didn't have the space then to really be safe or to really be in my body. I was still very much in escapism and disconnection and suppressing emotions and my feelings. And I had family members suggesting that maybe everything was just all in my head. And the reason I couldn't see was because I just wasn't facing reality. And although there's a really energetic truth to that, because a lot of what happens in our mind does manifest later in the physical body, I found it really insulting and dismissive at the time. I wasn't definitely in the space where I can hear those kinds of things now and make meaning of it. And it was actually an optometrist that looked at my eye and said, "Have you ever thought about MS?" And I had, because I had taken a lot of courses in university about brain behavior and the nervous system. In Canada, we have free healthcare, but that means you wait for a very long time. So I had about a year waiting until I got an MRI and a diagnosis. And during that time, I became pretty convinced myself that it was MS. And the first doctor that actually diagnosed me, just really terrible bedside manner, was no sympathy at all, and had pretty much said to me, "Well, don't worry, MS, if you're going to get a disease, this is a pretty good one to have because it really just impacts the quality of your life, but you'll still probably live long enough to die from cancer or a heart attack." And it was really shocking, actually, how flippant the comment was when my whole world had just shattered. Because now, not only by this time I had become pregnant again and had a new baby, so I was recovering from a C-section, still in an abusive marriage, still grieving, but now I had this diagnosis to carry with me too. And the fear of what does my future look like, because there's no way I can stay in this marriage. But now my career is going to fall apart because I'm sick. I'm going to have this baby that is going to need me, but how am I going to manage all of these things? And I think the saving grace for me was that I had a few months waiting until I finally seen an MS specialist. And during that time, I started to do my own research. And I always knew right from the beginning that this was going to be something I was going to solve in my mind and in my emotions, because that's what had caused it, at least for me. And I'm glad that I had that mind frame, because when I seen that MS doctor, he told me, this is, prepare to be in a wheelchair within 10 years. Make sure you keep a job with benefits. Take this medication, which to me felt like poison. and just watch yourself decline over the years. And I just couldn't accept that as my reality. And I had done a lot of research to know that it's possible to shrink the lesions you have in your brain. And some people never go on to have another relapse and the MS never bothers them. And to me, that was a cure. And when I suggested that, he laughed me off because, he had built a career on researching. And in his mind, the only solution was this prescription and the outcome was inevitable. And I never energetically believed that. And I think that that really helped me to keep a mind frame that was open and receptive to new possibilities and the curiosity to know that nobody was going to fix me, that this was a problem that I was going to have to face myself. And it was going to take a lot of radical self responsibility and a lot of honesty to really go into what those family members had suggested in the beginning, which is how much of this was emotionally based and how much of this was created from unhealthy thinking patterns, boundaries, and negative oscillations and disharmony in the body and the energy field.
So, firstly, I'd share my reflection on your story on that. And oh my God, it is inspirational. And I totally, totally love your spirit and love your reflections through your life and how you did not re- deny reality. And often people, they just live in denials and never situations happen to them and they're literally in denial. And then it's that we sometimes just forget to surrender ourselves into the situations and thinking about the better part of it. So thank you for taking us through that. And I'm so glad that you could share it with us, and thank you for sharing. um to continue with that, you have said something powerful, that for years the real issue wasn't the symptoms themselves, but the disconnection underneath them. And I know that you totally resonate with that. So I want to know, when did you realize that your body, it wasn't failing you, but it wasn't just being hurt. So your body was just letting you know that, oh my God, there is something that I need to tell you. And then there were constant rejections to it. So how did you realize that?
Well, I think that it started to come through sitting with it. And it's something that's very uncomfortable for most of us. And it's the reason why a lot of us get into things that I had done when I was younger, this escapism of using drugs to mask my feelings and my emotions. And, to always keep busy. I was a doer. And I always thought that as long as I had a goal and I was achieving something, and a lot of my worth was tied up in accomplishing and perfectionism. And I think it was really once I realized that there was something obviously faulty in my thinking and my belief patterns that had created an environment where disease was allowed to manifest. And so I had to go back there and really unpack that and figure out what it was. And unfortunately, there's no way to do that without facing some pain within yourself. And so once I started to really meditate and I started to practice yoga and embodiment and some practices that really required me to just sit and be with myself and negative emotions arose because I had a lot of shame, I had a lot of guilt, I had poor boundaries, I had a lot of stored up resentment and anger for all the times I hadn't spoke up for myself or protected myself. So many emotions, and those emotions have biochemistry involved with them, which then goes into the physical body and does affect your nervous system, your hormones, your belief patterns, your physical health. And I had to be able to sit with those emotions and let them actually process through us, because there really isn't a good emotion or a bad emotion. There's just that we have these things that happen to us and we need to remain open in the flow. The problem comes when we suppress them, we stuff them down, we deny them, or we ruminate and stay stuck on them. And so for me, it wasn't so much that I was ruminating on things, but that I had just really because of the environment which I had allowed myself to be in, I never got to really express my emotions or my needs because I was always managing and walking on eggshells for other people. And once I really was alone with myself and started to have to think about, well, what are my needs and what were the emotions that I felt and what has my body been trying to say to me? And I think that in a ironic and beautiful way, MS gave me exactly what it was I'd always been asking for. So I had used drugs to escape in my past and to not feel my body and to not live within my body. And then MS gave me this disease in which you disconnect your nervous system, your mind can no longer interact with your body. You don't have sensations, you don't have proper gait, muscle coordination, vision. And all of a sudden now I was forced to live in disconnection when I at this point just so badly wanted to be back in my body. And so now I had to do the reverse engineering. So instead of trying to disconnect, I had to try to reconnect because I didn't want to live in escape anymore. By this time, I had learned to meditate and do yoga. I'd gone to counseling and did my trauma work. And I very much so, and I still do want to be present in my life because I like who I am and I like the journey that I've been on. And I don't see it as a punishment, but really as a gift that I was given to take an opportunity to do that inner work and to come out on the other side, not broken, but more resilient.
Hmm. I totally get that. And again, thank you so much for your story on this. Because, again, as I mentioned, that sometimes we forget the struggles and, just want to either jump into something that would quickly heal it or, just forget about the whole process. And sometimes we also don't forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we've made or for the situations that we've been in. And I'm so glad that you are genuinely very aware of your situation back then and how you've grown through it and how you've grown from it, so that helps. And uh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Also, for listeners, let's ground this for them. If somebody hearing about the five koshas for the first time thinks that, oh my God, what is it? So, how do you explain them in a way that feels lived in and not like a yoga manual, right? So, a very simplistic idea of what these are.
Yeah, so the 5 koshas is I think uh it's a linear but not necessarily because there isn't one that's better than the other or above the other. We require all of them, but they are really the aspects of our being that we need to address in order to holistically heal at a real level. And they seem to come in concentric layers. So, the outermost layer being our physical body. And the physical body is what most of us live in, especially Western medicine. This is the biochemistry and the mechanisms of the body and the processes. And, this is where we feel the disease in our body. And then next, we go a little bit more inside of that, and we see we have an energy body. And this is where we start to see more things like prana or this vital life energy. This is where I would suggest our nervous system also lives. In Chinese medicine, known as qi, the meridians, the chakra, this starts to become the more less visible, but very felt still, because we all know when we get sick that we get zapped of our energy. We all know when we don't eat well or we don't do other things, we lose our energy, and how we can gain more energy by doing certain practices. And that vital energy is really what animates the physical body. And then when we get even more a concentric layer inside of that, we start to look at the mind, which is another kosha. And the mind now is going to be, the not so much the wisdom, but now this is just like the mechanisms of our thinking. So this is what some people would classify as like the left brain or the analytical, the one that's very full of language and making meaning of things and story making. And this is where we gather the knowledge to and a lot of us, this is where I would suggest we get stuck in our society now, is because we over mental everything, right? We think way too much, we ruminate on things, we spend a lot of time in the mental body, and above that, we go even finer and we get into the wisdom body. And this is now really thinking about, it's not just the amount of data that we've collected over our lives, but it's the discernment of it. It's what we make meaning of it. And this is where, for me, the MS changed, because instead of just thinking MS as a data point in the physical body, and so I had to really start to see, well, what are the wiser lessons in this? What is the meaning of this? Why did this come in my way? And how do I make, because, really in life, it's not just about the content of what happens to us, it's the context, the meaning that we give it. So, this is going a little bit more in the subtle nature of, And something that honestly, as we get older, we start to do a better job at making meaning out of all of the things that have happened to us, and also going back and changing some of the meaning in the context we gave it. Because obviously, events that happened to us when we were younger, and we have less resources, seem more traumatic to us. They seem like heavier things. But as we get a little bit older and we get more resources, going back and visiting some of those things and recontextualizing them and reframing them in a way that softens the edges and the pain a little bit off of us. And when we get to the final innermost layer, this is the bliss body. And this is really where we connect to our higher self, or to the divinity, or what in neuroscience now we'd be calling the unified field in quantum physics, the part of us that is connected to source, the thing that really, what we would think of as the soul. And this is where we have and a lot of us have disconnected in a lot of ways from this part of ourselves. We really go on autopilot there our whole lives without really contemplating that much. What is it that our higher self is really looking to do and achieve in this life? What is our purpose? And how are we getting there? And that's because as we get into these innermost layers, they require silence and space to listen. And really, in the society we live in now, we are have so much disharmonious frequencies in our field. We have social media, very quick news cycles. We have Wi-Fi, fluorescent lighting, 5G towers. We have so many things that are occupying our physical, our energetic, and our mind space that it starts to become harder and harder to make real meaning, because there's so many deep fakes and there's so much misinformation, and there's, just because we think a thought or somebody tells us something doesn't make it true. So, those layers of where we really glean wisdom and where we really make space to listen to that bliss body and reconnect. It's difficult for a lot of us to get there, but it is required if you want to really heal the whole body. You need to have the right information field, and that's this higher purpose and this connection. And when the information field is correct, downstream of that, it organizes the mind and the instructions, and it directs the energy in the body. And when you get back down to the physical body, all of those processes like exercise, diet, breathing, they all work better if we have the right energy and the right information field. So none of these things can be independent or alone from each other. But we do tend to spend a lot of time only in our physical bodies.
Hmm. Thank you for making it easier for us. And I'm here with you on this because, it's the team evidence and lived experience that yoga coach and, healing from all these koshas and yoga in general deals with. And I love it. Thank you for that. Also, you have said this that, the journey is not about fixing what's broken. It's about restoring communication between body, mind, and soul. And I see it through, and I know that you are a firm believer in, the balance and the communication and the tuning between all these three energies. So, how did that reframe change the way you live day to day? And can you share any anecdote with us wherein, you realize that, okay, all these three other things that should, be intertwined and be bound to each other?
Yeah, so I mean, I in my own energy practice and in my own daily routines, we can look at how do we hold a mirror to our energy body so that we can have a look at what's really going on. And I have a couple ways that I like to do that with people and with myself. One is with tuning forks. So tuning forks, anyone that's familiar, if you strike one, another one that's at the same frequency will start to hum because they resonate with each other being at the same frequency. And when I play a tuning fork and I bring it within and I comb it in towards somebody's biofield, sometimes you hear sounds that are unpleasant. They're high pitched, they're wavy, They don't sound like the sustaining beautiful note. And when you get to those parts, you can see that there's some kind of oscillation or something that's out of tune in the human body. And you spend a little bit of time there allowing the body to hear its own message mirrored back that's out of harmony. Because the body wants to go back into homeostasis and balance. It wants to heal. It will heal now naturally as long as we make the right environment in order for it to do that. And I also think that this is something we can do that at a more practical level, just say through mantra our own voice. So say anybody that knows vowel toning, and you can find videos like that all over the internet, where you go through each chakra and you tone a vowel. And I find, because I do this in my sound bath classes and I can hear the whole audience as they are toning back to me. I can hear different people able to hold one tone longer than another one. And one thing that's actually usually beautiful is that the heart chakra one of saying "ah," that everybody almost always tones that the same, and it's the loudest volume towards me, which is a beautiful thing. But you can start to hear in yourself then which one of your chakras maybe you're not toning as well. And, those are at the basic, those are the ancient practices that, the yogis and the Chinese medicine doctors have known for millennia. But on the more quantum new side of science, we have these bioresonance scans that essentially do the same thing. They record a sample of your voice, or I can scan people's hands. And when we get that frequency, it pings it back and forth hundreds of times over 10 seconds, and it reads what your frequency is emitting and what the average that we would see for many different things, for emotions, for meridians, for organs, different processes in the body. And it gives an instantaneous report to really show you what parts of you are out of tune. And those reports and these kinds of things, they're very fluid and intuitive, because it's not like when you go to a medical doctor and you take a test and it gives you an exact number. These things are just like snapshots of energy that's always kind of moving and flowing. And that can also have many sources. So when we see something coming up, say with your kidney, for example, the kidney can also be related to like blood pressure and to the emotion of fear. And there's all of these other things associated with it. So then this is when we get back into the koshas, when we look at the reports or I'm hearing these things in somebody's biofield. It's an invitation between the practitioner and the client, the report, to really have a conversation about, where is this actually coming from? Is this something that originated in the body because you had an injury or a virus? Is this something because you had an emotion you haven't processed or let go of? Is this because of a limiting belief that you have from childhood? It's really looking at the whole body and really treating somebody in a way outside that you don't really get in most traditional medical systems, where it's all about the symptom and suppressing, or doing surgery or cutting it out. With the koshas and with all of this kind of healing, it's about seeing the big picture and the interconnectedness of all of those things, and always keeping in mind the uniqueness of you as an individual, your soul, your path, and putting a lot of the responsibility on healing back on you as the person going through the journey, because there is nobody that is going to understand your healing better and have more insight and intuition about it than you.
I love that. I love that. Um, to the listeners, this was very insightful, and I hope you resonate with what Dana has shared with us today. And from my side, here is your 24-hour invitation, that do one body check in, without trying to fix anything, and set a timer for 60 seconds maybe, and breathe and ask quietly that body, what are you trying to tell me today? And write down the first three words that come up. No editing, no judgment, just information. And I hope this helps, because it works for me. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who has been, living in survival, and tag us so we can hold the conversation together. Because healing gets lighter when it's not loud. And Dana, thank you for your honesty, your courage, and for reminding us that the body is not the obstacle, it's the guide. And to everybody listening, keep going, keep softening, keep listening. And uh, your body is not your enemy, it is your teammate. And I hope you realize that. This is Soul Sparks with Pragya, signing off. Until next time, protect your peace and spark and your soul.